Hey, what is up mortals, it is Rin here, and before we get into today's video, there is something I'd like to say. I'd like to let you all know that we have a merch store. Some of the items in it are only available for a limited amount of time, so if you are interested, go into the description and check it out. Each purchase helps us make more content. Secondly, if you didn't know, only 7.2% of you guys have subscribed to us, so please hit that subscribe button and click the bell icon. Now with that out of the way, let's get into the video. The atmosphere surrounding both ninjas emulated an intense silence. The gracefulness of the wind fluttered their attire. The cold iron that made up Naruto and Orochimaru's headbands refracted from the sun's rays before fading from the clouds covering the sky. Naruto readied his positioning, shifting his open-toed boots in the gravel behind him. In a gathered swarm, the leaves of the surrounding trees blew off their stems, gliding down around them. "Is this your doing, little Genin?" Naruto's affiliation for the wind nature shined at this moment. The control over the air guiding the leaves was proof of that. Orochimaru slowly lifted a kunai to his face, Naruto seamlessly mirroring his movements. The first leaf to hit the floor landed with grace. Upon doing so, both Naruto and Orochimaru lunged at each other, commencing their battle. A sharp ringing howled through the trees from the impact. Their strength and speed matched, evident from the scraping noises caused by the kunais pressing against each other. Orochimaru threw his leg upward, to a straight line parallel to his other leg, and swung down with a ferocious speed aimed at Naruto's head. Naruto shifted to the side before catching the bottom of Orochimaru's heel with his other hand. Grasping it tightly, Naruto pulled Orochimaru closer, ducking and widely sweeping his other foot. Orochimaru flowed with the direction that Naruto swept him in, flipping sideways before he kicked Naruto upside down on his headband. The kick distanced both of them, as Orochimaru landed on his feet and Naruto on his rear. "Bastard! Who are you?" Orochimaru turned to face the young genin before bowing creepily before him. "Orochimaru, at your service." "You are a peculiar one as well. Uzumaki, was it? I happen to have a slight interest in your bloodline. Perhaps I'll take you back along with me. With that Uchiha over there." Naruto jolted back on his feet before his hands moved swiftly with each hand sign. Naruto charged straight towards Orochimaru, waiting for an opening before unleashing his jutsu. The sly figure of Orochimaru's muscles waved back and forth, deformalizing into multiple scaly threads. His neck elongated and bent, slithering through the air as his fangs in his mouth grew longer. The snake sprouted outwards, in Naruto's direction. Naruto leaped and twisted in the air, avoiding each snake as he spat out blades of air from his mouth, cutting each one's head in bundles. The heads that fell began to liquefy into a white substance. The puddle began to move and mold itself into a clone of Orochimaru. The clone moved quickly and snatched both Naruto's wrists from his blind spot. The pale snake ninja's original body grappled Naruto's ankles, his arms bending in ways as a snake does. Naruto floated there, being bound by his ankles and wrists by both of them. The original Orochimaru's serpent's head slithered in the air, edging closer to Naruto's face. The forked tongue of a deranged monster of a ninja's tickled Naruto's nose. "My, what a spectacle you are. It's a shame you're still no match for the likes of a sage such as myself. I definitely have plans in store for you." Yeah, sure. Whatever you say, you freak." Naruto puffed into smoke as the real Naruto was rebounding from tree to tree, fast enough to kick the dirt and leaves off the floor in a vortex. Naruto pulled a tree out from the ground, keeping his momentum before swinging it at Orochimaru, bending the force of the hit with wind nature. Naruto sharpened his air currents around each branch. Orochimaru's upper body was cut in half on impact, while his legs fell over with barely any time to react. The legs began army crawling before deformalizing into serpents, slithering into the dirt. The upper body landed back first on the tree trunks, rebounding in the air before Orochimaru's nails elongated, stabbing into the wood to catch himself from falling. The serpents that made up his legs dug out from the dirt, crawling up the same tree, reconnecting with the rest of Orochimaru. Blood began dripping down from his lips, paying no attention to the injury. Orochimaru's nails bent in between the branches as he propelled himself backwards. Stepping off the trunk, he slingshotted through the branches straight back at Naruto, kicking his face in. The impact was too intense for Naruto to stay stagnant. He flipped in circles as he flew into a dozen different trees, crushing through them. Orochimaru wore his wicked smile as he landed in front of both the unconscious Sakura and Sasuke. He lifted his hands to slash at both of them. Instantly, the attack was interrupted by a small vortex that rose out from under him, lifting him off his feet and spun in the air. Naruto stood amid the forest, exhausted as his hands in a hand sign position. He dropped his hands lazily, dropping Orochimaru from the vortex. Before he got a chance to land, Naruto performed a double layout flip kick to a tree, and instantly sending it flying straight at Orochimaru. The tree impacted, but Orochimaru split into multiple snakes around the trunk, before reforming on the other side. Using the leverage from kicking off the trunk, Naruto backbent and leaped off the floor with chakra-infused shuriken flying straight towards Orochimaru. The blades were guided by the wind, flying inches from him. The heat in the air surrounding the metal stars seared cuts into his pale skin. Out of nowhere, the bottom of the shoe slammed upwards against Orochimaru's chin, pushing forward and slamming him downwards. The foot was still present, along his jawline as the two descended. Both entities collided with the ground, kicking up a massive dirt cloud. The pale snake's eyes swung open to the sight of a genin in a green tracksuit, and a black bowl cut stepping on his face. "Rock Lee, reporting for duty. I must admit you're very creepy." Orochimaru gritted his teeth before windmilling beneath Rock Lee, causing him to lose balance. However, he recovered, performing multiple back handsprings to create a distance. Orochimaru got back up on his feet, grasping his jaw and relocated it back into the place before focusing on the new opponent. Meanwhile, Rock Lee stood there with a signature position, presenting his hands back with his thumbs receding, his other hand behind his back as he stood with excellent posture. What insolence! Orochimaru's voice groveled under his breath, obviously frustrated by how much he underestimated Naruto. The fact that another one got the drop on him only added fuel to the flames. Naruto caught up to Rock Lee's position and stood beside him. "Hey, wanna help me take down this creep? What's your name again?" Rock Lee nodded, not paying Naruto any mind. He was still cold towards the orange genin from the earlier confrontation, then freaked out. "Wait, you don't remember my name? It's Rock Lee. Rock Lee! I was the one who confronted your team before the writing exams." Naruto pondered, placing his thumbs on his chin, squinting hard as he browsed his memories. Orochimaru stood there, dumbfounded at the amount of disrespect that was going on. "Nope, doesn't ring a bell." Rock Lee facepalmed and groveled in frustration before the both of them synced into a battle stance towards their opponent. "Gosh, whatever. Let's get this over with." They both kicked up dirt beneath them as they zoomed towards Orochimaru. Naruto reached into his ninja bag and threw paper bombs at the pale-skinned man. Meanwhile, Rock Lee performed a few flips before landing gracefully on one of the flying paper bombs. Upon impact, they would all explode, which sent him flying at terrifying speeds. That Orochimaru wasn't playing around anymore, he simply grasped the bottom of Lee's foot, stopping him mid-flight before his hands devolved into snakes, which bit his leg over and over as they slithered up. Rock Lee yelled a bit from the pain as his legs instantly began to purple from the venom. They threw hands as the real Naruto threw them at the duo one by one. Each clone had a task, one to grab Lee, separating him from the snake's grasps. However, two of the others each go for punches, but they were unsuccessful in their attempts. Orochimaru gut-punched and double-kicked them both sideways. They vanished during the kick, and paper bombs took their place. A shuriken flew by hitting one, causing it to explode in a chain reaction with the other. Amidst the smoke, snakes launched in Naruto's direction. They began to swirl into a spire, before they lit on fire, trapping the orange genin into a flaming spiral, cutting off the oxygen around him. While trapped, Orochimaru swiftly made his way towards Sasuke in an attempt to abduction but ultimately failed. The bald-headed taijutsu miracle wasn't slowed by the crippling leg. He wrapped Orochimaru by his wristbands faster than Orochimaru could morph into snakes. He trapped them all into a cocoon. Naruto began to windmill kick the flaming spiral, ultimately cancelling out the flames. He grabbed them by the tails, reigniting them, and flung them at the cocoon, inflaming it. Teeth popped out from the ground surrounding the flaming bandages that sealed Orochimaru. The ground began to shake as the dirt underneath began to shift. A giant snake arose from the ground, Orochimaru emanting from the scales of the obelisk. Rock Lee and Naruto were both wide-mouthed. "There is just no stopping with this guy." Gah. The toxins that flooded into the bloodstreams of Lee's began to take effect, eating away at his leg and spreading through the rest of his body, slowly. He reacted fast, drawing out the kunai before slicing his leg off before the toxins could spread further. His screams echoed throughout the forest. Tenten and Neji's ears perked up from the voice's familiar sound. Naruto cauterized the wound to prevent blood flow as Orochimaru laughed maniacally atop the Nagini. Naruto's facial features grew more aggressive, yelling like a savage beast at him. Wind picked up around the both of them before Lee reached out, blocking off Naruto. He kept his composure and bit his lip to keep the pain from taking over. The bulk-up warrior struggled to stand up, resting one side on Naruto as support. He lifted up his calf cover, which revealed training weights. I was hoping to save this for later on in the exams, but this will have to do. You owe me a leg. Oh, do I? My, how intriguing. For someone whose chakra is non-existent, you sure talk big, little one. The green that highlighted the genin from the Orochimaru's perspective vanished. In the next moment, a foot made contact with the side of his head. The snake sage only had enough reaction time to look to the left at what happened. Lee gave no time for breath as he launched a barrage of fists and one-legged kicks. His speed was fast enough to keep him afloat above Nagini's scales. This was a first for Naruto. Never has he seen another ninja fight at the same speed he does. Not to mention, he's missing a limb. This amped up Naruto, kicking it into high gear. Naruto summoned a few clones as they locked hands, and Naruto flipped onto the human trampoline they created and launched straight at the Nagini's face. In midair, he flipped sideways and latched into the Balisque's eyelid, tearing it off upon landing. It started spazzing out in pain, jolting its muscles violently. The trio activated their chakra control to stay on the wild bull ride. Naruto grew a demon wind shuriken and threw it down at Nagini's spine, ripping it open down its back before the shuriken transformed into the orange genin himself. Using his strength, he reached in and pulled out the giant strand of muscle holding it together, causing it to vanish. As Orochimaru kept receiving blows, holding both of his arms to block them, he studied the genin's constant movements. He anticipated the next move, grabbing his fist before leap-kicking Lee right in the gut, rocketing him into a tree, breaking it in half. When the back of Lee's head made contact with the hard trunk, it knocked him out instantly. The green genin was pumping fuel that only existed in willpower alone. There was nothing else for him to give. His endurance was fried. Naruto scurried into his new companion, looking over his injuries to make sure he was still alive. The injuries themselves weren't critical, however Lee was still breathing. "You bastard!" Naruto grunted hateful words under his voice as the aura surrounding him grew more intense. The air chakra nature welled up inside the Saiyan's blood. Trees around him began to slice, piece by piece, from the surrounding air alone. Naruto's face showed ferocity as he aimed at Orochimaru. It shook his very soul. My, that gave me chills. However, I'm afraid I'm done here. I still have more to do outside of playing with you, Naruto. This was the first time Orochimaru stated Naruto by his name, a sign of respect in his eyes, acknowledging him as a genuine threat. His form transformed into a sea of snakes that scattered throughout the forest, vanishing into a flora that covered the dirt. This frustrated Naruto further, hating the fact that he's letting the creep escape. But Lee and the rest of his team reaching the next exam was more important. Naruto checked to see if the scrolls in his pockets were still present, and they were. He tossed Lee carefully over his shoulder. Sasuke and Sakura added on to the luggage. Naruto raced towards the center of the forest, reaching it shortly after. Naruto set them all down carefully to the side and yelled at the group full of genin. "We need medical ninja! Right now!" Kabuto raised his hand with a smile as he stared at Naruto. He noticed the injuries of the group before him. Even Naruto was bleeding in places. They must have had quite the tussle in the forest. Bring them here. Thank you all for watching the video to the end. Now there are a few more things that I'd like to go over before the video ends. On behalf of We the Celestials, I'd like to thank the writer for this video as well as the editors for this video. Their details will be in the description. If you are a voice actor, editor, or writer, or you're interested in becoming one of those, go into the Discord that's in the description of this video and hit up the head of one of those areas. We're always looking for members to join us. That's it from us for today's video. So thank you all for watching and have a great day.